Hail, I enfold you in the Elohimic light, the light of your cosmic reality, blazing forth its splendor into space. For space, as the dwelling place of God, ought to be hallowed by the radiance of the soul releasing the light of 10,000 suns into manifestation. I come to you this night in that refreshing radiance that is the light of your own soul. That is the solar light of the solar system, of all systems of worlds, of 10,000 suns, blazing forth reality into space, and saturating space with the fragrance of the Most High God. Like the formation of a lily, the trumpet of heaven pours forth her fragrance. And mankind, engulfed as they are in this fragrance, in the sense thereof, in the very drama of enfolding purity, are aware of the pristine state in all of its magnificence, are aware of the pristine state before it was sullied and contaminated in the consciousness of man, as it was envisioned in the beginning by God. This state of God purity, beloved hearts of light, has never been altered, but remains to the present the bastion of mankind's unfolding reality. When I come to you then this night, it is with the magnificent certitude that responses will arise in embodied mankind's hearts because we invoke it. It is the will of God that you should respond to the vibratory action of your own soul's purity in its native habitat of the living Spirit of God, dancing as a flame in his hand and as the flame in the lantern of life by which mankind are illumined and through which they are able to extend the boundaries of purity out into the world and bring about that natural release of heavenly fragrances, which is the fragrances of many souls blending into oneness, into reality, into beauty in its pure God estate. How very marvelous then, beloved children of mankind, is the life beautiful as it commences the unfoldment of the cadences of reality in the content of the mind and the sense of awareness that stands forth in the heart of man and speaks of the unspeakable word which it is not lawful for a man to utter. But I am an Elohim, and I come forth from the veil of cosmic purity to speak of that which one day shall be a magnificent reality for you as you hold yourselves to be an inviolate representative of the Holy Spirit, of the compassion of God for the universe and for yourselves. For all that is not light ought to be full of light. All that is the absence of light ought to receive light. All that is darkness ought to become light. And in the various shadings of light in manifestation, embodied humanity are able to exhibit that which they have never shown forth before, save at that supernal moment when first they danced with God in the ritual dance of creation, when the living electrons and atoms in the process of geometric formation were aware of the divine intent and started the outpicturization of that intent in the world of formation as holy manifestation. There is in the world today a multitude of actions, beloved hearts, that involve psychic phenomena and the function of mankind's human identity in its escape from the human state and the manifestation of human egoism. Quite frequently, individuals become identified with the psychic world. I want you to know this, and I want you to understand it. For the psychic world is not the spiritual world. The world of mankind's maya, of mankind's illusion, and of the drama of illusion is not the bounty of the merciful spiritual realm, where each soul, bowing to the light of God in another, is able to hold the ritual of compassion for all and the beauty and bounty of that compassion as each soul steps forth through the power of its unfolding reality to greet all parts of life with faith and beauty and love, hopefully manifesting Christ awareness, the Christic consciousness, and the pure light of blazing reality. O mankind, shun and avoid involvement with the astral mutterings of those spirits that peep and mutter, of those conditions which are only the mirage appearing on the desert of self, which can never produce the miracles that heal, the miracles that seal mankind's beautiful solar consciousness in the unfailing and unfading light of God. Do you see, beloved ones, that the avoidance of contact with the astral is one's assurance that he will keep the city of his consciousness free from the doldrums of human meanderings? For much, if not all, of that which happens in the astral world is but a rehash or a remanifestation of that which takes place in the human world of form, which is wholly wedded to the human and to human concepts, which does not actually hold the flame of reality within its consciousness. And because it does not hold the flame of reality in its consciousness, beloved ones, it involves itself in that interminable manifestation of human viciousness, human despair, and even human joy. Yet human joy, when it functions in the astral realm, is but a masquerade of divine joy. It is a game of charades. It is a deceit practiced upon mankind that deprives them of the magnificent concepts of reality which enfold the Christ consciousness in every heart. When embodied mankind will recognize this and shun and avoid astral or psychic contact, the identifying of themselves with what was called by the wise men of old a form of necromancy, they will understand that communion with the dead is taboo, but communion with the living is indeed the grace of God. Will you understand then the buoyancy of this splendid action which is taking place before your eyes, whereby mankind are not then enabled to make contact with those who dwell in the realm of astral horror, but rather in the realm of God reality. The vibratory action of this realm possesses the power of bringing you into a state of consonance with your divine identity, whereby you will be able to reach up through the astral densities of the world and find the solar sun shining in her strength and releasing those magnificent God ideas into the field of your consciousness, which will make your consciousness Christ-like, God-like, and flooded with the passions of immortality. I am Astrea. I come to you this night then, mindful of the universal spirit of love that floods the world with the renewing bond of hope, and chastening hearts also conveys divine grace. For God has said that those that He chastens are those that He loves. And if some of you have perchance dabbled in astral contacts, if you have become involved in those activities of human seeking, hypnotism, phony astrology which manifests in the world that is not based upon cosmic astrology, and all of those activities which actually deflect the soul from the intended grace of God, please understand, dear hearts of love, that heaven may wink at the former days of your ignorance, when you engaged in those activities which are not productive of that latent good which God has already placed within the fold of your souls as a talisman of cosmic magic to free you by the power of the risen Christ and the vibratory action of the ascension currents from those dregs of human wonderings and human despairs which confuse mankind and bring him into an aborted state where he is not able to bring forth the Christ consciousness in the swaddling garment of his field of mind and conscious awareness. When I come to you then, it is not merely a worded concept which I am releasing into your mind and being. Instead, I am placing there the folds of righteousness and godly purity, which are the basis of the foundation of the earth and of every planet and of every star and of the filament of light that lights a universe and a cosmos. Will you understand that? For the field of your consciousness, darkened though it may have been by various activities which have stemmed from human or mortal desires, I tell you truly, shall then be renewed as you accept the chalice of heaven's offering. For heaven is not populated with just one identity, although there is but one spirit. The identities of heaven are manifold. For the Master has said, other sheep I have which are not of this fold. Them too I will bring with me. And so, in the great gathering of the stars of life from the systems of worlds that exist throughout cosmos, heaven has brought the very best devotional aspects of consciousness into manifestation. Do you understand that all is God? Do you understand that there is but one Spirit? Do you understand, beloved hearts of light, that it is that one Spirit that trembles the web of the universe? Do you understand that it is this vibratory action of that one Spirit by which you are raised into the rightful socket of your cosmic identity, moving as it is through the cosmic thrust of initiation, the initiation of attainment? Well, mankind, do you think that all that is written down in your books is the fullness of life? Are you so conceited on the face of it all that you do not understand that the mysteries of life are also written in your hearts and minds and are engraven upon the face of nature? This is God's beauty. This is God's splendor, shining in its strength. The radiance of cosmic purity. O angels of cosmic purity, descend in the name of heaven and sunder the heart of the world with the love of God, the love of 10,000 suns. I am the consciousness of God descending into the chalice of your heart and bringing into your breathing, living awareness the field of your consciousness, not only for this moment, but for that timeless time, the reality of God purity, which one day you shall know, because God wills it so. If you are to know it with the fruition of your consciousness, it will be a God delight and a God intent. But if you refuse the opportunities that now face you, the opportunities that have always faced you, and you succeed in extinguishing the God flame within yourself, simply because you take delight in human perversity and sundry manifestations, extinguishing the flame of life in yourself by reason of your refusal to bow the knee to the only begotten of God, full of grace and truth, the only begotten Son consciousness, the awareness of the Logos, the awareness of the beginningness of God and the endingness thereof, which is the beginning and end of cycles and of all ages, which is the power of Alpha and Omega, which is the power of God unto salvation to all that believe. For faith is an alchemical experimentation whereby the very fabric of the soul is washed by the magnificent washings of the Holy Spirit, that cleansing which makes the soul as white as snow. For reflected in the mirror of self is the transcendent and magnificational powers by which the soul of each individual comes at last to the point where it is able to accept the power of the Godhead in manifestation within the force field of the individual consciousness, within the force field of ideas conveyed from the lost word to that word that is found by the individual. And in the finding thereof, that which was lost is at last the revelation of the mind of each one, who, seeing by a gentle peep into the reality of God, the magnificence of the entire structure, suddenly stands before the Most High to utter these words: I am thankful, O God, that thou hast manifested thyself in the field of my consciousness, that thou hast placed the focus of thy love within my heart and mind, that thou hast directed me unto thy ways, the ways in the side of the north, the ways in the focus of the white stone, the ways in the new name, which no man knoweth, saving he who hath received it, the ways that are indeed the perfected ways of God, conveyed at last in the strands of time unto embodied mankind, that will lift them up out of the wretched states in which they have found themselves into those magnificent states in which they will find God revealed at last to them as never before, and breaking forth with those hosannas of praise which are not only able to penetrate the sheaths of mankind's ignorance and darkness, but also to reach into the very bonds of the deep and penetrate the deep and break forth the fountains of rejoicing and the waters of grace, that they may flood the earth and remove at last the bane of mankind's ignorance and bring forth that magnificent strength, the Son of God shining in all of his power and radiance, that at last the world, filled to the overflowing with the cup of the Christ consciousness, may indulge itself forever in the great labor of divine cleansing, whereby through the Spirit of God man is separated from all that is impure, all that is indecent, all that is improper, and reserved a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, wholly dedicated to the concepts of Melchizedek, priest of Salem, to the consciousness that is from the beginning and continues on unto the ending of cycles and the beginning of new cycles. For behold, the Lord speaks even through my heart to say, world without end, I am being immortal, deathless, and full of life. And behold, I will kill with death that which is death, and I will bring into manifestation only that which is life. And I will raise me up a people who shall understand the beauty of holiness and the raising of my name in the whole annals of the earth, until the earth, in the midst of its trembling and its understanding and the cup of my wrath, shall behold my love facing mankind as never before in this age, and trembling the web of the universe, that I may bring forth a cup of renewal unto all generations, who shall call me blessed. Thus saith the Lord, lo, I am a flame called life. Lo, my spirit filleth all things and is everywhere. Lo, my spirit has spoken to all generations. Lo, my spirit shall raise mankind on high. Lo, that which is lowly shall become that which is exalted. And I will say unto the valleys, come up hither, and unto the mountains, be thou exalted. For all shall know me from the least unto the greatest. And behold, I shall not be removed into a corner any longer, but I will shine forth as a song in the heart of the singer of songs, and as the music of the ages, that shall exalt all generations, until righteousness shall cover the earth as the sea. And behold, the dry land shall be covered with that righteousness, which shall cover mankind's barrenness, shall cover mankind's nakedness, and shall bring forth revelation as a spear to pierce the iniquity of mankind's consciousness, that has dared to consider itself full, when lo, it is empty and naked and bereft of reason and strength, and shall come to naught, save I, the Lord, infuse the temple by my sudden return thereto. Lo, I come forth. Lo, I manifest. Lo, I am at hand. Lo, all life shall be raised. I am the Lord that covereth the earth with my glory, and behold, the glory of the Elohim stands forth. Lo, the glory of the Elohim stands forth. Lo, the glory of the Elohim stands forth as a shield, as the Urim and Thummim of reality, as the consecrated host, the sacred Eucharist, the one loaf of life, shall be broken for many. And behold, now the exalted power of purity. Purity is light, and light is hope, and hope is renewal. Let there come forth now an activity to the ages of cosmic purity. And let an ancient door in the temple of nations be opened. Ephrata, be opened. Let light stream forth upon the planet Earth, and let the universal plan be revealed to the heart of man. Behold, there is a point in the mind of God. Behold, it is a point called the side of the north. It is the side of righteousness, and the hidden peaks and the hidden valleys are therein revealed. And that which man does in secret shall be shouted from the housetops. Does it not say, O individual, that the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout and with the voice of an archangel? I am the Elohim Astrea. Lo, I am one of the 7 spirits that dance before God. I come to you then this night to evoke a preeminence in you that is the preeminence of cosmic purity. I tell you, when you receive this power within yourself and make it a consecrated part thereof, you will find at last that darkness will flee at your command. You will find when you call unto me and utter my name and understand that you are a part of the being of God, understanding that you are a part of the fiery nature of God. I am. When you understand that one fountain blazes forth over the whole earth and you are a part of that fountain, then the voice of many waters that covers the earth shall speak and call home those children of captivity, as well as those who say they are not bound, but are truly free. And behold, all nations shall come to know that I am the Lord. The flame within you that speaks is the flame of cosmic purity without alloy. Lo, it does not have in it the content of any chemical element of human vibratory action, but only the pure God flame is there. I am Astrea. I am Astrea. I am Astrea. Lo, I have spoken. Lo, I have brought divine grace into your midst, the Spirit most holy that enfolds every part of life, that sunders the power of the psychic and the astral organizations of the world, speaks now in the heart of Africa. I command now in the name of the living God that all psychic activities of human witchcraft and all activities of human darkness and all activities of man's inhumanity to man, of the entanglement of mankind's human action, shall stop and cease forthwith. Let there never be any action from this point in time and space which shall bring harms to any. For great harms are ended by the power of God. Lo, the fiat goeth forth, the fiat of cosmic truth, saying to all powers of darkness, you have no power. Henceforth, you are stripped of all power, and the beginning of the freeing of a continent is at hand. For the Christ banner is raised as a banner of unity over the heart of a world, and the banner that is raised is the banner of cosmic legions. It is the power of the unfurling banner of the Lord. It is the power of the beginning of a new kingdom established and made without hands, but by the agency of the Spirit itself in its pure state. O mankind, accept and be free. O mankind, receive and perceive the redemption of universal love. O mankind, reckon with the balance of God. Many, many tekel a parson, thou art weighed in the balances and found wanting. Behold, the hand of God writeth upon the wall. Behold, the hand of Daniel stands forth in the last days. And behold, the freedom and liberation of the world shall begin even now. So be it in God's name. I am. Gracious ladies and gentlemen, in coming to you this afternoon, it is to bring to you a greater degree and level of awareness of the importance of your mission viewed from a divine standpoint. Individuals enamored by the various activities of the world are from time to time caught up in those activities and totally become unaware in many cases of the solemn responsibilities of heaven and the attendant grace that flows constantly from higher octaves unto mankind. Those of you who hold a more than ordinary awareness of the flow of heaven's grace are able to extend hands of hope into the ethers, and then have placed upon your hands those magnificent elements of cosmic grace by which the saints also were raised. Let me say to you then this afternoon, in the name of the living God, that the torch of freedom that has been passed to you is one which requires review from time to time. It is necessary for embodied mankind to comprehend and to understand that universal grace has been vouchsafed to them. Otherwise, they may well forget the grace of God and the mercies of God, caught up in human conflict and mortal delusion. For the strands of Maya indeed enclose the world in a cloister which is not always to their liking, even when viewed from an outer standpoint. But when viewed from an inner standpoint, it is wholly reprehensible to the soul. For the soul desires to breathe the air of freedom and to recognize that freedom is the only means whereby the individual may rise, and in that rise prepare itself for the great adventure of becoming one with God. I am called Sanctus Germanus. I am your brother of light, who is devoted entirely to the externalization of the Christ consciousness within the domain of your being. Unless this be carried out, unless you yourselves accept this grace which heaven has given to you, as though it were indeed your own, which it really is, I fear also for the family of nations. For throughout the world the will to fail exists side by side with the will to succeed. And then there is also that which may be called no will at all, for it is a matter of man's involvement in senseless delusion and fear. I want then this day to bring to you greater awareness of who and what you are, that you may understand the solemn responsibilities attendant upon becoming a keeper of the flame in actuality. For heaven has thus far, for all of you, kept the flame blazing upon the altar of your heart as an activity of cosmic charity. I am sure that you would not want it to continue so, but desire instead to literally bank your own fires by infusing them with enough divine charge to carry you through the long night of mankind's sorrows and despondency, until such a time as the brilliance of the dawn and the realization of what the opportunities of life mean to you can become a vital, breathing, living essence in your consciousness, which essence will transpose the meaning of life into new dimensions of spiritual desires and apprehensions. Then, when you are able to garner enough grace from heaven itself, you will no longer question as to whether or not you are able to accomplish any good thing, but you will recognize that all you have to do is to put the law into operation in your own force field, the force field of your being, and summon that energy in the name of God, which will produce the exact manifestation and precision accomplishment which you desire to achieve. The mere will to achieve in itself is not enough, for man must learn the process whereby he can invoke the will of God into living conscious participation with Him in the ritual of precipitating those specific desires which produce all things for mankind, and specifically for those sons of heaven who are blessed with a more than ordinary manifestation of universal grace. Now, grace, ladies and gentlemen, is the quality of the Holy Spirit which is given to all. It contains the most lofty ambitions, those ambitions calculated to bring to all mankind a renewal of the covenant of life. But man do not always understand the meaning of the covenant of life, for they are often recipients of a good invoked for them by another, which they have no particular idea whatsoever as to its real meaning. But would you deny this quality to the seeker, or even to he who is not yet a seeker? For have you yourselves not been also blessed with a renewal of your identity, a fashioning of cosmic banners for yourself, which banners have brought you to a greater level of awareness? Well then, don't you think, ladies and gentlemen, that you ought to extend to others in various levels of accomplishment, or even not accomplishment, but merely the parade of possibility before the screen of their mind, the self-same opportunities that were also given to you? Is it not a great pity that mankind will not consider how many blessings they have received, how many they can receive, what opportunities will be given to them in the future, and how the very governing of their own lives may determine that very manifestation? Well then, don't you think it is about time, beloved ones, that you should receive a greater assistance from heaven? I do. Well then, don't you also think it is time that you should think how much assistance you may give to heaven for both activities, are in the wings of manifestation. Man's great good, the great good which heaven has prepared for him, is quite frequently in the wings awaiting manifestation, at the same time that mankind are waiting to perform the manifestation of universal service to others. And if we hold both in abeyance, it will bring about quite a stultification of man's hopes and ambitions for all parts of life. For in mankind today, and I'm speaking not only, of course, of embodied mankind, but also in those who hold the ascended master consciousness near and dear, there is a firm resolve that greater progress ought to be made at both the human and divine level. If mankind, above and below, will unite in an effort of cosmic purpose, they will produce in the world of form those cosmic miracles of manifestation that are and represent the hope of heaven for the world and for the family of nations. In upholding the cosmic torch, then, reason must be accepted. And reason is indeed a person of great achievement, of great responsibility. For reason, like the spark that produces fire, is the alchemical power of man's potential, and the multiplication of that power in the world of form to such a degree that men and women working together will be able at last to direct their world without all of the human and personal mishaps which prevent them from appreciating and understanding all that heaven desires to see active in their world in response to their calls and those intercessions which men are so frequently making. Those calls for assistance, almost like the Macedonian cry, are echoing the world around. Ideas of man's thought, ideas of God's thought, and ideas even from the level of the angelic hosts. In invoking then for you today a more than ordinary assistance, I am calling forth not only from the heart of heaven, but also from the heart of earth, a recognition of their responsibility. It is not just a matter of summoning from the highest levels those magnificent, radiant qualities of the Godhead, but summoning here from below in physical manifestation those cosmic sparks of human endeavor which can unite with spiritual endeavor and thus perpetuate a legacy for mankind of some true greatness. What is it that hinders mankind if it is not the human concept of lag? Mankind's ideas that perhaps 1,000 years away, or in some distant tomorrow, at last the world will summon those virtues and graces which will alchemically transform the world. Tomorrow is now, for in the eternal now, man is able to transform himself absolutely, because he contacts that level of advancement which does not depend on the quality of human whimsy, the idea that he will summon when he is ready. Man should understand that God is ever ready, a flame, a light, a power, whose magnificence, when bursting into flame, is able to consume man's dross, and in the consumption of that dross, to release in man the fires by which Prometheus, unbound, may seize at last the spirit of world initiative and invoke those transforming attributes of man which are already resident within him. Strange, is it not, that mankind can fail utterly to apprehend the things of God when within themselves, in the very fabric of their soul and thought, there is already in existence those transforming qualities for which they seek. Is it not then a very iffy proposition when viewed from the human level, and a very certain proposition when viewed from the divine level? For if the vessel which is created by the life of an individual, self-created, becomes a shard of darkness, a sweep of inefficiency, might it not be best in some cases to return it to the pile of debris and remold it? What is this of which I speak? It is of calling back into the great heart of God the very energy He has sent forth and entrusted to mankind, and then observe failure after failure where individuals, through their complacency and their fears, through their distrust of the motives of one another, cannot secure any reasonable effort which they can place in the circle of nobility as a potential fait accompli. I say to you then, must we rely upon one part of the earth and the keepers of the flame fraternity there, while denying opportunity to other parts of the earth? I think not. And so today I extend to you a renewal of opportunity from the heart of one who is truly bearing the flame for mankind. The torch which I bear, I pass to you, and as I pass it to you, I pass also certain of my own energy of accomplishment. But I do not expect that this energy shall return to God void, but shall accomplish the purpose for which it is sent forth. And if the lofty purpose is to be ennobled at all, it is because you have sealed it within the focus of your heart flame. And if within your heart flame, then within the flame of possibility. And if within the flame of possibility, then within the radiance of God Himself. For another name for God is possibility, potential. The potential of the Father, Mother, God, the potential of the accomplishment of the flame. But the flame must spring up in a living haven, a place where God can be enshrined. Thus man becomes a keeper of the flame. Shall he keep the flame within his consciousness as a brittle manifestation, one that can be easily broken or extinguished, as it were? I doubt it. For such is truly not keeping the flame, but is merely a passing examination by the consciousness of the simple curiosity of a moment. Will God do it? The question is not will God do it, but will you do it? The question is one of can it be accomplished by flames working together devoid of human personality? Of course it can. But when you permit the human personality to extinguish the flame, this is scarcely an activity of divine accomplishment. But it is a dampening of the fires of purpose, one for which I would feel sorry indeed if this were to become the plight of those who have pledged their lives, their honor, and their sacred fortune to the producing in the world of some recognizable trend of the future within the force field of the present moment. Must we always behold the eclipse of mankind's destiny, or dare we hope that man will seize these opportunities as they are presented? When I come to you today bearing the mantle flame, it is the renewal of a covenant made long ago, which none of you now in embodiment are fully aware of. Yet I come even at the response of embodied individuals who sometimes hold only a dim spark. I urge upon you then the flame of being awake. Be awake unto what may well be, and it will be. Sleep, and behold the sleep of centuries. For upon mankind today, to whom is given this opportunity, there is presented now a renewal of an ancient covenant of hope. Will you pledge to me your hope then? Or will you let the flame vanish from your hearts and thus from the hearts of a people? For there are few in the world, all around the world, who are willing to recognize their potential as God's potential, their opportunity as God's opportunity of the moment. To be a keeper of the flame is a substantive activity of the sacred fire. It is a covenant trust which is given to you as you are able to receive it. Point by point, victory by victory, your faith will win new laurels for the world and for mankind. Do you think that if this were a simple matter, that God would deny it to mankind? Nay, it is through man's own failures that it has been denied, and it will be through man's covenant of success with the ascended Master consciousness, with the Christ consciousness, with the beauty of realization, that men will discover at last the true meaning of Prometheus unbound. And so that which has been bound will be bound no more. Freedom will echo, not as a lost cause in the world community, but as a cause of inspiration that must be sustained by right action. Hear this thought and capture it in the net of your consciousness, enshrine it in your heart, uphold it by your action, and perceive it as the way in which you should move. I thank you. children of the heart of God, does it seem so strange to you that I should come to you this night? How often do your intercessions rise, appealing for assistance in the personal manifestations of your own life, calling forth assistance for others, and invoking that spirit of adoration that in its solemn sweetness does make men aware of God's concern for them? Let it be then that men are content to rest their case at the bar of God's heart, to receive therefrom not only that personal succor of universal strength and compassion, but assistance in every department of life, that men might fulfill within the domain of their own lifespan that magnificent passion of hope, which is the appeal or intercession to the heart of God. You do not expect, O beloved mankind here upon the continent of Africa, that God will deny you access in this part of the world, nor in any part thereof, but that his heart, filled as it is with universal love, will strengthen the bonds thereof and the sense of man's compassion for one another, that mankind may not lose their way upon the pathway, but may find instead from day to day that sweet and solemn spirit of beautiful apprehension that indicates divine awareness of their heart's desires. Mankind, stranded as they are upon the bars of time, are often unaware of the tides of cosmic fruition, of cosmic intent, of that grace which is sufficient for all their needs. From time to time, they seem to feel stranded, as it were, and without the surety of God's success in the adventures of living. I am mindful of the need for mankind to be willing to change their mind and to decide at last that hope is not so far away, but instead is just beyond the threshold of their awareness, the curtains thereof being drawn as if by angelic hand. How often have the beautiful souls that have served the light, hallowing space and those sacred portions of the hearts and minds of mankind, have felt the pulsations of heaven's concern. Then, beloved ones, let me ask of you this night that you cast aside as an unwanted piece of baggage those elements of unnecessary concern, and in your divine outreach hold breathing and living awareness of the omnipresence of the eternal brotherhood, of light and hope, and eternal strength as the sun shining in her splendor, brings to the world the circle of certainty, of vision. So let man, as he perceives those spiritual guides that are connected with the beautiful and bountiful soul within, manifest individually those strands of gentle and bountiful awareness which are the fullness of God's heart. As I came to you tonight, it was with a splendid awareness of Accra. Long ago, he who, like El Moria and others of the Brotherhood, offered name and fame to God and stood as a frater of light, a brother of the sacred fire, to sponsor a vast and mighty continent that was to be. He gave in a fruitful ceremony of the Brotherhood every vestige and trace of his name, and so we called him Accra, from whence also the continent drew its name, Africa, as man call it today. This giant soul, with his tremendous devotion, was one of the unknown brothers. And so long as individuals feel the need to expound upon their own personal achievements, they may well find that they are not truly a part of us. For we have offered, as divine Tourelles of old, everything to the vow of poverty, everything to the name of God. We desire in reality to retain nothing of ourselves, but only those magnificent designs which are a part of the Godhead, which comprise the quality of grace to assist embodied mankind in their search and realization for those garments of golden light which generate the passions of the brothers of the golden robe. For the brothers of the golden robe esteem divine wisdom as though it were a holy flame, a gesture of the intent of God made manifest the world around. And so to all God seekers everywhere, I address myself in this hope that more among mankind will perceive the shining sun of wisdom that speaks to the hearts of men and calls them to that evocation of universal grace which manifests strength in its splendid shining within the framework of man's individual identity, and is a chalice of hope and its contents liberally lavished upon embodied mankind for those who have already attained and are able to recognize the grace of God and to draw it forth by will, are then not those who require our assistance, but those who walk yet in the doldrums of human despairs, alternating between those passionate achievements that spell the beginning of reality for all, those achievements when recognized by the gentlest wave of the Holy Spirit, or even a magnificent but tiny comprehension of universal grace, are pleased that heaven has taken notice of them. I remember then long ago of thinking of the wind as brother, an embodiment of God. And so I spoke to the wind and said, brother wind, brother sun, brother sky, brother earth. And I realized full well that all of this individually embodied a manifestation of collective intelligence and infinite wisdom. A wisdom that was bequeathed to us, for our hearts were grids and force fields of light, waiting, calmly waiting for the manifestation of the renewal of our hope and the flashing forth at last of new strength from day to day, that men might grow in grace and flourish in their awareness of God. And so, when we speak of a brother, of one who embodies a fraternal friendship for all life, it is also to speak of Accra, for your continent was once called at inner levels the star Africa. And then the diamonds in the earth and the gold glistened with renewed attunement as the elements themselves heard the voice of God, and men understood the meaning of attunement, not as a vain thing, something that had none or little value for humanity, but as a giant gift entrusted to the few, yet intended for the many. And so as we come this night to speak to the heart of Africa, it is to renew our ancient covenant of brotherhood. Activate now then those retreats of our brotherhood upon the continent. Let the chakras of a nation glow with the renewal of cosmic fire, that the hearts of a people everywhere may respond to the call of the brothers of the golden robe, to the call for mankind to pay heed to the sweet voice of brother wisdom. The cosmic lute plays, and in the release of that sublime music that spans the covenant of the ages, mankind once again see the compassion of God as spanning continents and girdling the world with a swaddling garment of Christ comprehension. Comprehension of Christ and his eternal reality must be vested in the individual, and the individual must arise to the needs of the moment to expand that flame of universal compassion that lights the cosmic sky, majestically informing all of the need to recognize cosmic reality within themselves. Men seek without, here and there, thither and yon, that they may receive or perceive the music of the cosmic lute. And when they do, the first few notes of God delight bring to them a sense of personal delight. And this is God's will. But as the years are spanned by man, as he perceives the need to walk upon the path, it is not always easy. For there are many hindrances in the world which test the quality of man's resolution. Shall he fulfill the needs of the brotherhood upon earth? And even the question comes to his mind you, is there a brotherhood? This may seem at times to be questionable in view of the fact that man observes in his world so much that is contrary to brotherhood motivation. But then, those of you who feel deeply within, whose centers of universal light are open unto the Godhead, you do not question, except in those moments when darkness hides and opaques the face of the Sun of Reason. Tonight, then, I speak also of the testings of life and of the great opportunities they bring. An opportunity to touch the hem of the garment of the world teacher. For the world teacher comes to you tonight not just in outer words, but in an inward urge to see the world transformed and become a place where the garment of eternal loveliness can dwell. You recall the woman who was afflicted, who touched the hem of the Master's garment. O mankind, are you too proud now to reach out in consciousness and say unto your own divine identity, Eternal Father, let me touch but the hem of thy garment, and believe that life will answer your call? Beloved people of Africa, understand that it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, to give all men the kingdom. The great necessity is that they have that willing surrender by which serenity of mind is obtained. For in the world today, there are so many stirrings of conditions whose portent is more toward the dissipation of energy than the concentration thereof. And the requirements of the hour, the requirements of the cosmic disciplines, are ever to gird up the loins of men's minds, that they might, through the swaddling garments of Christ reality, understand how beautiful is the daughter of heaven. She who is called surrender, serenity written upon her brow, surrender in her heart, and a willingness to be the bride of the universal Christic image, shines in her awareness of devotional needs and devotional resolves. Without resolution and without the concentration of motive, man may continue, embodiment after embodiment, to dissipate his energies in senseless manifestations. Often after these energies are gone, he saith unto himself, what a foolish thing have I done. But now opportunity faces you, one and all, as a flame. An opportunity to do homage to the deity. An opportunity to recognize the universal Christ within your heart. An opportunity to end all struggles in that great surrender of your consciousness. An awareness of the family of nations and their need. An awareness that no man is more than a monadic expression. For each of you, from wherever you may hail, are expressions of the ultimate deity in a finite form. Recognizing, therefore, the motivating trends that have led you now to the feet of the universal Christ, where you are willing to surrender your all unto God, can you then summon that required and necessary momentum to carry you over the hurdle onto the top, where at last you may join those apostles, prophets, teachers, and devoted spiritual workers of all ages in the recognition of the meaning of the eternal brotherhood. The eternal brotherhood requires support today from embodied mankind. For if we are to answer the request that you have made to us, it is necessary that we have a ratification of your energy here and now. Be not weary in this requirement of the moment, for it is a cosmic law that we who dwell in higher octaves of light cannot interfere at your level of consciousness without your individual request. As we then call to you to recognize this universal need, it is in anticipation that many of you will speak unto God and ask for mankind, the dumb, the deaf, those who are blind, those who are without comprehension, and for them as a brother candidate for the order of the golden robe, for wisdom's children, you will summon from the sun that light of hope which can light the world and replace this present era of shadow and many human chains with that spirit of regeneration of Christ reality that is the star that lights a continent anew. As I have come to you tonight, I have asked many of the brethren of the golden robe to come with me, and they have asked for many angelic beings to stand round about this chapel wherein you sit. These brothers holding the chalice of wisdom in their hand as a cup of receptivity, invoke from the heart of God then, here and now, assistance, that the giant taper star, the star of Africa, may be lit once again in the world order as never before, and from the fires of your own individual devotion. Did you think, beloved children of the one God, that you could not do it? Then remember, with God all things are possible. And so, out of the consummate flame of the multitude of your hearts, together with our hearts, the hosts of heaven and earth unite. And in the flame of our union, we will this night light the star of Africa. And she shall shine her beams the world around, and regeneration shall be fashioned as a thing of glory and strength. A kindling of a conflagration shall commence, and with the beginning of that unifying action, mankind shall pass through a host of stages, but out of it all may emerge the drama of ageless wonder that shall bring unto embodied mankind a light that unites with the family of nations the world around to create afresh the order of the golden robe in all nations, thus producing the climate of peace, that shall kindle in all men the thriving spirit of a new industry, the divine industry of fabricating the kingdom of God upon earth, the weaving of those strands that are the warp and woof of life. From the horizontal level, mankind weave certain strands. From the vertical level, the angels weave the vertical strands. And out of this blend comes the cross of life that is the fabric of the star, the Christic star that must light each continent as it must light each soul's lamp and lantern. I have come this night in order so to do. I will not weary you. I thank you. Serapis, born out of the fires of cosmic chastening, are those fruits of the soul whereby progress is made. Those of you who have long awaited the moment of your deliverance, hasten the day by your obedience to the sacred fire. And those precepts of universal loveliness which are to be found in the sacred fire as it is cognized by the advancing individual. Stop for a moment and think now of the fire with its frequencies, of the fire from the standpoint of the electronic essence of itself. Think of the multitude of communication networks in the world order, and then proceed to realize and recognize the many conduits of grace that are connected with heaven itself and with the chambers of the Brotherhood in the great pyramid of cosmic reality. I come to you this day, then, mindful of the sacred fire, in its manifold ramifications, its determinations to produce the fruit of cosmic purity. Purity begins in mind and heart. Purity is maintained by the will and the attunement. Purity, however, may occasionally be breached by embodied individuals as they allow their gaze to function in levels of consciousness and awareness which are affinitized with the world's thoughts itself. Therefore, it is essential and important that all understand and recognize that the shedding of carnal-mindedness is the greatest step whereby individuals are able to fulfill those latent desires of both heart and soul, which long after the Christ consciousness in its unfailing deification of the individual. For whensoever individuals are vested with the Christ consciousness, they are given a direct connection with the living God, with the living perfection and presence of their being, with those cosmic strengths that are able to destroy all human weaknesses. Individuals for far too long have tarried upon the path and not recognized their needs to bring about by an act of valor those things which are the will of God in their life. It is not sufficient to merely wish, but rather to demand of life itself the power to overcome those conditions which you have deplored for so long in yourself. Many individuals that criticize other individuals are in reality criticizing themselves and too cowardly to be able to face it. I want you to understand then that glaring honesty of heart, as El Morya has put it, is extremely important. Not that you as individuals are scaling the stars by your own human virtues, but rather that by grace and power and love for the infinite plan, you are able to pass beyond the concepts of your finite life or your individual identities, and to recognize that there is a supreme identity which has for far too long been withheld from the grasp of mankind by their brittleness, their selfishness, and their purposeless drift upon the human sea. Being involved as they are in most cases completely with the meanderings of the human ego, they fail to see the divine ego of themselves, orphaned as it is, and thrust into a corner of relative unimportance. When I come to you this day, then, it is to make you aware of this blissful, photic fire, which blazes in all of its frequencies and affinities of the Godhead. The light and play of color and movement in the sacred fire is calculated to separate man from his dross. Man, then, created in the image of God, is a golden pool of melted liquid golden light. And when he understands that, he is able to recognize that the purification of selfhood from the realm of human duality combined with God perfection is needed and necessary. It is not enough just to recognize your problems. You ought also to do something about it. And when I see individuals studying for years and years, producing very little fruit, I am always reminded that one day they will find themselves in a lower position rather than a higher, in spite of all their study. For I want you to know that truly some of the first are last, and some of the last first, purely because of determination and that motivation of the will of God and the purity of God, which holds each man in the divine image, regardless of what particular and specific thought or thoughts they have allowed to occupy their mind. From time to time, the world itself, emanating the human spirit and the vibrations of human thought and feeling into the very atmosphere, polluting the planet thereby, comes to even the most valiant of individuals for redemption. Have you thought, for example, of your role in those redemptive factors of the planet? You ask for the second coming of Christ. Beloved hearts, are you doing anything to produce it? Is mankind doing anything to clear the way for it? Is mankind anxious to receive it? Or is mankind content to vegetate in some traditional, picturesque scene of human contentment? I want you to understand that contentment and the picturesque scene, or any other particular facet of life which you wish to dream up, are yours for the asking once you have first achieved that perfection goal which you seek. But so long as the world is in turmoil and decay, so long as the teaching of true cosmic peace and overcoming is actually so badly needed by the world, is it not just a bit foolish, do you not think, for mankind to continually seek only for that which we may call temporal peace, whereas the universe itself is engaged in a form of spiritual warfare in high places? The dark powers of the world that must, as they know, surrender their allness ultimately, are engaged in conflict with the powers of light. One, of course, is wholly entangled with the human ego, whereas the other is identified with the soul in its rise into that perfection, assuring each man of the fruit of the ascension in the light. But unless the light be recognized daily, unless the ascension be obtained in part daily, man cannot expect that suddenly, as a giant magnet appears overhead, he will be lifted out of whatever mortal socket of despair and despondency he has allowed himself to vegetate into the pure light of God. Nay, your victory is obtained each day in some portion. And then one day, as you have moved still closer to the divine magnet, you will automatically be exalted into the ritual of the ascension. I want you to understand that the serpentine coil at the base of the spine, the Kundalini fires, are only automated and commanded by the power of victory itself. In other words, it is almost a folly for individuals to exert their efforts to stir up those energies which will provide them with more energy, whereas they do not know how now even to govern that which they have already obtained. If then the energies which you call forth from the Godhead, together with the wisdom which you invoke, the power which you invoke, and the love which you have, are calculated to produce that perfection you seek, then well and good, for you will learn to mastery all fires of God. And there are differing fires with different vibrations and different vibrational actions, which can be used and directed by the power of the Spirit of life within you when the requirement of the hour demands it. For individuals to simply seek as a point of human experimentation, to play, as it were, with the holy fires of God, can very often prove disastrous. Hence, we warn you of this, and we tell you also that all of the fruits of heaven can be yours for the asking when that asking becomes a unified direction, a recognition of the divine intent from the beginning to give you the kingdom, and that determination which will not take no for an answer, particularly a human no. Do you see what I'm speaking about? I'm speaking about the chastening of God as an activity of producing that refined manifestation which is a Son of God, the burnished gold color of the pure fire itself, as you in your fiery bodies place in your vital awareness the full understanding of who and what you are. For who and what you are precludes what the world has said you are. It is the first and the last in manifestation. It is your beginning and your ending. It is the beginning of you and the finalizing of your victory. It is the ending of human struggle. It is the ending of human defeat. It is the ending of human life as mankind has synthetically created it, and the beginning or origin of your divine life, wherein all things are given to you. For eye hath not seen, as Paul has said, nor ear heard, nor entered into the heart of man, the things which God has prepared for them who love him, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Will you then envision that purpose as the central theme of your life, and watch how the forces of darkness targeting in upon you because you have started then to begin your emancipation will direct those arrows and slings of outrageous fortune against you. And it may seem at that moment as though rather than progress you have fallen backward. But beloved hearts of light, it is the chastening and the discipline that will actually set you free. For what is the problem in orbital flight, beloved ones, if it is not inertia itself, which must be overcome by the propulsive force? Let men understand then that it is in direct relationship to their determination plus their relinquishment of the spirit of inertia and human concepts that propels them forward spiritually until they enter in to the orbit of the cosmic ascension in the light, in thought, in mind, and in heart. But, beloved ones, beware of allowing this thought to be obsessing in the sense that the very practical aspects of your karma are not viewed. Individuals should understand exactly what I mean, for I am attempting now to make it plain to you all. I am referring then to the fact that on this planetary body there are those who need and require your assistance and the assistance of the masters of wisdom through you. Beloved ones, it may be true that there will come a time when they can dispense with that, of course. But while they require it and need it, be practical and do not think entirely of the fact that you selfishly would obtain an escape from this realm prior to that moment when your own divine will within you consents thereto. I have spoken to you thoughts that you might be able to utilize for your own emancipation in the light. But I want to commend you also for those right actions of the sacred law of the sacred fire that continue from day to day to guide you in your spiritual desires in that practical understanding of who and what you are as a part of the body of God upon this planetary body that will one day stand where we stand if you persist, and will certainly fall if you do not. I want you to understand then that you cannot operate from the standpoints that some human beings have allowed themselves to do. You cannot just take it for granted that because you are functioning in a certain spiritual search, that that search is automatically fulfilled within you. Nay, I tell you, you must search and find, and finding recognize your need to assist your fellow men in the development of that divine consciousness which you are developing yourself. Then, by the power of example, in every area of your life, you will produce that good fruit which will set the world literally on fire spiritually, to understand at last that the temporary finite goals that appear to the average individual as the span of their life are in no way relevant to the eternal love of God cast upon the screen of nature and upon the screen of soul reality or solar reality. You are children of the sun, but this is the sun also that exists behind the sun. And the power of the Son of God is being transferred to you daily as you are able to receive it. I, Serapis, seal you in the adjurity of the law. I adjure you to be aware of the law. I want you to recognize the law. I want you to feel that you can identify with it without kicking against the pricks of cosmic reason and cosmic justice. For truly, It is the chastening of the hand of God that actually exalts you. And as I gaze upon the planetary body and see those wondrous souls who are now in the process of almost clean escaping from error and the chastening which they have encountered, I am aware that the greatest process of burnishment was the chastening and the discipline, and so I count it the greatest of glory. Peace be upon you, but may it be a peace of determination and goodwill. Peace be upon you, for out of light comes forth the omnipresence, the omnipotence, and the omniscience of God. I thank you.